All right, we're the Black Arts and Hip Hop Movement, and I'm Matan Morris.
Dominic Gross.
Jaydon B. All right. We got setting the stage. So, in about the year 1965, Malcolm X was a political rights activist. Malcolm X wanted to speak out for African Americans because of the racial abuse not only his family has received, but all his loved ones and friends have received from the KKK. That include passionately speaking out at rallies, gatherings, and big events. Although he wasn't as peaceful as Martin Luther King Jr., he pressed that African Americans fight back. This can make white leaders / people upset and angry. Malcolm X had a speech in New York City on February 21st, 1965. His speech with his guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies. I want to point out first that I am very happy to be here this evening, and I am thankful for the invitation to come here to Detroit this evening. He went on talking about the African American Revolution. In Malcolm X's final paragraph of his last speech, he stated, "I say that I am not a racist. I don't believe in any form of segregation or anything like that. I am for the brotherhood for everybody, but I do not believe in forcing brotherhood upon people who do not want it. As long as we practice brotherhood among ourselves, and then others who want to practice brotherhood with us, we practice it with them also. We're for that. But I think that we should run around trying to love somebody. We shouldn't run around trying to love somebody who doesn't love us. Thank you." Later that night, Malcolm X was assassinated by Thomas Hagen on February 21st, 1965.
Yeah, basically to touch on what Jaydon said, that assassination is really a spark plug for basically the rest of what we're going to talk about. So, but
just a little early life of Malcolm X. He was born named Malcolm Little in 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His dad was a Baptist preacher and a follower of Marcus Garvey, a Jamaican political activist, which is the main reason to spark his political views. The family moved to Lansing, Michigan after the threats from the KKK. Even after moving, unfortunately, the family continued to get threats, which sparked Malcolm X. Thomas's early life, even though we do not know much about Thomas, but we do know that he was born March 16th, 1941. He was a member of the Nation of Islam. Thomas does not have a lot of records for his early life, but we do know that after his murder of Malcolm X, he was released in March 2010. Some important figures. First picture on the left is Malcolm X on his final speech, talking about freedom, all to his followers. In the middle picture, we have Malcolm's body being transported from the day he was died. And then the picture on the right is Thomas, the day he was released in March 2010.
All right, thanks, Jaydon. So I think you set the stage really well for us here, and we really have a good grasp now of what was going on in the time, and with all the oppression, obviously, and discrimination towards African Americans, and especially with the Malcolm X assassination, everyone was kind of pushed over the edge, and change had to be made, and the African American community was really resilient and was able to overcome the odds. So getting into our movement now, the historical past of the Black arts and hip hop movement uh, has a lot to do with oops, has a lot to do with going dating back to slavery and just how impactful, uh, like I said earlier, all the effects of slavery still trickle down uh, into this time period were, and African Americans evolved and adapted to new forms and styles, and it became a very important aspect of their life when thinking about the arts and music and poetry and anything relating to the creative side of the community, the African American community, that is, and a lot of the music was very influential too, like blues, jazz, rock and roll, hip hop, and R&B. And as you can see here, that's cover of Summer of Soul. And so, when and who are we really talking about here? Uh, so during the time period of the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s, the African American musicians were, I mean, they really played a monumental role in bringing attention to the struggles and injustices that were faced by their community. And there's some specific artists that are pictured down below, and Nina Simone, James Brown, who's in Rocky Four, one of my favorite movies, and Marvin Gaye. Um, they really use their music as a platform to speak out about um, social inequalities and to promote political change. I think people oftentimes overlook the effect music can have, but they certainly were able to use their platform for the good, for the better, and for the future. And they inspired millions while doing it, and mobilized the African American community to fight with them for equality and justice. So, looking back at some successful initiatives, uh, there were a lot of them uh, that impacted the African American community um, around the time period, right? But the Harlem Renaissance was really one of the most monumental uh, time periods that really could have that really did, I should say, change the entire landscape of what was to come in terms of growth in the African American community in a bunch of different facets. And one of the main impacts of it was the way it helped promote a greater sense of pride and cultural identity among African Americans as a whole. And it provided an opportunity for African Americans to celebrate, socialize, express their culture through art, literature, music, and any other forms of creative expression that you can imagine. Uh, they really were able to put it all together in this time period, um, as pictured down below too, with some jazz. Uh, and this really helped them to have an outlet for all the negative stereotypes and marginalization that they were facing in the past and still. Man.
Milestones that advanced the movement. Hip hop music, which originated in African American communities in the 1970s, has had a significant influence on American culture and society. Here are some major milestones and lessons learned from African American influenced hip hop music. Legal efforts. One of the major legal efforts related to hip hop music was the copyright infringement lawsuit brought by rapper Biz Markie against the record label Warner Bros. In 1990 in the 1990s. The case involved the use of sample from Gilbert O'Sullivan's song Alone Again. In Marky's song Alone Again, the cause helped to clarify the legal boundaries around the use of sample in hip hop music. Community response and changes. Communal responses. The hip hop community has often responded to social and political issues through its music. For example, many hip hop artists have used their music as a platform to speak out against police brutality and racial injustice. Changes to American society. Hip hop music has had a significant impact on American society, influencing fashion, language, and even politics. It has also helped to bring attention to experiences and perspectives of African American communities. Goals and objectives. Original goals and objectives. It is difficult to determine the specific goals and objectives of the hip hop movement as a whole. However, it has certainly played a role in giving a voice to marginalized the communities and bringing attention to social and political issues. It was also considered an outlet for troubled youth and creative minds to focus time and energy into something artistic that gave back to their communities.
So our new movement is the Scholar Athletes, and basically, we're individuals who participate in collegiate or scholastic sports while also pursuing a degree. And individuals that are like-minded oftentimes face challenges that are unique to them in terms of balancing all the demands of their sport with the demands of their coursework, uh, especially at the college level and beyond. But our mission statement is the scholar athletes stay highly motivated and dedicated to excel in both their sport and in their studies. And we and despite the challenges that a lot of these student athletes face, they often go on to have successful careers, and we feel like that's because of the adversity they've fought through and thanks to the discipline and dedication they've developed while pursuing athletics. And our nonprofit mission statement is that our goals and objectives are to reach as many student athletes as possible to join us in our pursuit of academic and athletic excellence. So why are we here? I mean, what are we doing as founders? So we formulated the Scholar Athletes because of the difficult climate that exists in terms of students staying balanced. Like I mentioned earlier, too often these students are getting consumed by their schoolwork, their sport, or both. And our founders meet on a weekly basis to discuss, what areas we want to target in terms of doing community bonding activities to really improve and get back to our communities, specifically our African American communities. And yeah, so you want to take this one, Jaydon?
Hardships in helping the African American community. There are several issues facing African American student athletes, including racial discrimination. African American students, athletes continue to face discrimination in various forms, including in college admissions, financial aiding, coaching hires. Our work will aid African American youth by focusing on the reaching areas that are predominantly Black and less privileged. Mental health and student wellness. Mental health and wellness. African American student athletes may face unique stress and challenges related to their race, such as microaggression and discrimination, which can impact their mental health and overall being. For example, hearing a racial slur or a hateful comment towards them, walk into class, walk into practice, or even out during a game.
Yeah, so we really feel that we can be of use and help them in a multitude of ways. While we may not be able to directly stop some of what Jaydon was referring to, we have other ways, which we're going to get into here. But Dom, do you want to read off this one?
Accessing education. Access to education. African American students, athletes may face barriers to accessing higher education, including financial barriers and limited access to academic resources and support. This can impact their ability to succeed academically and graduate on time. This is where we come into play by donating money from fundraisers towards supporting Black youth education.
So more specifically, to refer to some of the contributions of African American men and women that are a big part of us is LeBron James, who's donated millions of his own dollars to helping us in terms of supporting the education of thousands of student athletes across the country from less privileged areas, along with Simone Biles, which has helped us by sponsoring a lot of the fundraisers we do to raise money towards the programs that help student athletes earn scholarships who need help. Thank you.
Thank you.